Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at exercise 8, which is making this boat hull, and we're going to talk about sweeps inside SolidWorks 2020. So let's begin. First of all, you can see this boat that I threw together. It's not dimensionally correct. It's just a visual. I'm going to turn off the preview here. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and design this boat hull, and then you get to design what's on top. I'll actually show you some of the pointers on how to create something like this. Again, this is there's not a lot of detail in here. This is just kind of an aesthetic piece. So let's begin. Start with the new part file. Go ahead and select the front plane. And actually, I'm just going to go to View, Hide Show, and most of you probably have your planes turned on already. You just don't realize it. So you probably don't have to go through this step that I'm about to. I had turned off my planes so I couldn't see them. But now I'm going to go to Hide Show, and I'm going to go ahead and find the planes. And actually they are turned on, never mind. What you could do here is you could click on the front plane and hit the eyeball, which is to show it. Now we're going to create this boat via a series of lofts. I'm sorry, this is going to be a loft, not a sweep. And this is a series of sections that we're going to be creating. And you can see my feature tree here. Let's take a look at the loft here. So we're going to start off with this backside and actually turn off perspective. We're going to create that backside with these dimensions. And then we're going to copy it and enlarge it as it goes through onto a new plane. And that plane is going to be offset a specific distance. And then another one will offset, as you can see here, about 8 inches. And then finally for the tip, we come off 1 inch and we put a little point on it. And then we could actually loft between those sections and then mirror it over to make the boat hull. So let's begin. Okay, so I'm going to go, I selected the front plane and I'm showing it. Now, here's a cool little trick for offsetting. If you hold the control key down, get the tip of your pointer on the edge of the front plane, hold your mouse button down and drag it to the lower left here, and you'll see it will begin to offset. Go ahead and set this to 6 inches and hit the green check. Now zoom out with your wheel or hit the F key and grab plane 1 now. Now, not the front plane. Be very careful. Don't select the front plane. You're grabbing plane 1 that's right here. Look carefully at what I'm about to select. Hold control, drag this forward. Now yours may not behave as quickly as mine. I have a pretty powerful processor here. I know that when I've worked on my laptop, which has been on the weaker side, this takes a little bit longer for it to catch up. And this one's going to be 8 inches. Hit the green check, zoom out, or hit the F key again. And this time, plane 2, you want to get the tip of your pointer over the corner, or not the corner, but the edge of it. Stay away from the corners and the points. Now I'm going to hold control, drag that forward, and this only goes forward 1 inch. And hit the green check. So now we have these three new planes, including the front plane that we have on here. We're going to start by drawing the back side first. So select the front plane, start a sketch, take your line tool and draw, inferring to the origin on the left-hand side, draw a line to connect it and then a line down. Now you might be wondering, like, why didn't I just draw from the origin down? Then what happens is that you have the line chain. I would have to exit out of the line chain to draw the next line. So that's why I inferred to the left and drew down from there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and add some dimensions here. And if you're wondering where these dimensions are located, they're actually in the training guide, which I want to bring over here so you can see this. It's on the vertanu1.com webpage. So if you want to find this, you could actually just go to V as in Victor, E, R, T as in Tom, A, N as in Nancy, U, X, and make sure you click on the 1 or else it'll bring you to a different page. Britannia1.com and hit enter. And then here you can see the web page and the instructional manuals and the SolidWorks basics. And you should be able to get to, I think it's page 80 or something like that. Let's see here. Okay, page 83. You can see the offsets here. These are the dimensions for plane 1, 6 inches, plane 2, 8, plane 3, 1. And what we're looking at here now is the actual dimensions. So we 2 by 5. So this one right here, I'm not 2 by 5. My apologies, coffee's wearing off again. 2.5 by 2. So this one's 2.5, and then this one's 2. All right, now we're going to use the spline tool. Now we've talked about the spline tool before. There's the style spline or the ordinary spline that's at the top. We're going to use the ordinary one, just spline. Click over here, make sure you get the orange dot. Now drag down at about 45-degree angle approximately, and get about 2/3 of the way to the other side, like just about where I am. Click, drag another point over here, about getting closer, click, and finally click on that vertex at the bottom. Click, and you could hit escape on your keyboard. Let's put the other dimensions in. So this point here to this top line, that will be, let's see, 1.25. Okay. And the next one will be 1.5. So click on this point to this line here and make that 1.5. Now lay these out, spread them out so they're easy to read, and stack them in order, just like I have there. 1.25, 1.5, 2 inches. Now these ones. Click on this vertical line here. Click on the point closest to it, drag it down, click. That one's going to be 0.5. And then click on this vertical line here to that point, drag it down here, and we're looking at 1.5. And lay these out so that they're easy to read and that they're not overlapping, because we're going to copy this and reuse it 2 more times. And if they're out of order, you might mess up your model. All right, so hit rebuild or exit sketch, either one's fine. Hit your space bar and go to isometric, which is Control 7. Now we want to get that sketch onto plane 1. So here's my suggestion. Don't select it from the view screen, or else it'll just take segments of it. Won't take necessarily the dimensions. Click on the actual sketch from the feature tree on the left here, just like you see what I'm doing here. Now one click, and now release it, and Control C is copy. Select plane 1. Okay, look carefully at the plane I'm clicking before you do this. And now to paste it, hold Control and hit V as in victory. And it should have pasted that sketch there. Now on that sketch, and I've seen this happen before, normally we want to edit that, make it larger, changing those dimensions. However, sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. You could try double clicking on this curve. And mine seems to work just fine. It goes into edit mode, sketch edit mode. But if yours doesn't work, just right click on sketch 2 over here in the feature tree, and there should be an edit sketch option. I'll actually rebuild to show this to you. So you could right click on sketch 2, and there's edit sketch. So either way is fine. If the double click doesn't work, don't worry about it. It might just be, it could be the mouse, it could be a number of things. Let's hit the space bar and go to the front view orientation. Grab this upper right corner of your model with your mouse button, drag it down, and you'll see it's floating. We have to drag it back to the origin. That's the one constraint it doesn't bring over when it projects it onto another sketch plane. So drag it over, make sure you get the blue dot, release, and it should turn black. And remember, black is good. We want it to be fully defined. If it's still blue, drag it away and try it again. If it's still blue after that, you could hold Control, select the point that we were trying to drag, release it, and then select the origin. And on the left-hand side, you see coincident or merge points. It most likely coincident should come up, and you can select that as an alternative. Now let's go to the drawing here, and we need to, at this point, change these dimensions. So as we're looking here, the 2-inch is going to be 2.375. So over here, double click, make that 2.375. And I'm going to drag this over because I have dual screens. And I think you get the idea that you want to be able to alter those. All right, so we're at 2.375. Next one, the 1.5 over here, double click, is going to be 1.75. And the 1.25 is going to be 1.375. So as you can see, it's getting larger. See the gray profile there? That's the sketch that's on the front plane, which is the rear of the boat. Now, this next one, and it's when you're expanding, go with the largest dimensions first and you work your way down to changing the small ones last. So for this one, it's going to be the 2.5, double click, that's going to be 3. The 1.5 is going to be 2, and the 0.5 is going to change to 0.75. And you can see it's considerably bigger than the last one. You could go ahead and hit rebuild or exit sketch. Go back to isometric, spacebar if you like. Now let's go ahead and click on plane 2 and Control V as in Victor. Otherwise, remember, you could use edit and paste as well. And it should still have the first sketch in your memory buffer so that you can get it on the proper plane. Now, this happens quite often where students select the wrong plane to drop it in on. Here's a little trick how to flip plane. Let's say I accidentally dropped it on plane 3 here. I'm going to hit undo. Let's say I dropped it on plane 3. I hit plane 3, Control V as in Victor. And it's like, oh, darn it, that's not supposed to be there. Here's what you can do. You could right-click on the sketch in the feature tree. And there's Edit Sketch Plane. Now select the plane you want it to go to, which was plane 2. Hit the green check, and it should have moved it over. Okay, let's go ahead and double-click on that or edit it. If you want, you could right-click on it. You could go to Edit Sketch. That's another method. Hit the spacebar, go back to the front view orientation, drag that upper right corner away from the origin, and then bring it back. Make sure you get the blue dot, drop it in. Should turn black again. Now this time we're squeezing it down to something smaller. So start with the small dimensions and work your way out to the large dimensions. So for example, right here we have, we'll start down here, the 0.5. This 0.5 needs to be 0.2. So double click on that, make it 0.2. The 1.5 at the bottom is going to need to be just 0.5. And I'm just double clicking on these, by the way. And the 2.5 is going to be 0.675. Now these dimensions, notice they got tangled up. Before you start double clicking on them, lay them out in order. 1.25, 1.5, and 2. Start with the smallest, 1.25. That will be 0.2. The 1.5 vertical will be 0.375. And the 0.2, I should say the 2.0 will be 0.6. And if you like, you could lay these out a little bit better if they're being thrown about. Okay, hit rebuild. Go back to isometric, which is Control 7. And now for plane 3. We're going to just put a point on it. So click on plane 3, start a sketch. You don't have to go normal 2 for this because it's just a point. And the point tool, we've never used it before in this class, is right here, if you look in the screen, locate it right on the origin that's inside plane 3. When you get the orange dot, click just once, hit escape, and you could go ahead and hit rebuild. Now we're ready to loft. Go to Features, Lofted Boss Base, and let's start from the rear and work our way forward. Now, it does matter where you click. So like, let's say we clicked in the upper left quadrant of this shape. See where I'm clicking? Okay. Now, just for the heck of it, so you can see what could go wrong if you don't locate the same region or quadrant, this is what happens. Let's say I go to the right quadrant now, and you see it twists. Easy to fix though. You just grab this green dot, drag it over to the left, and it will straighten it out. Okay, let's get this one. Click, and then click on the point. Now, don't panic if it disappears. What happens is that SolidWorks has what they call a weight applied to the surfaces. And we just have to turn that off because right now it's adjusted to what they call 1 point of weight. So click on this Start End Constraints here. Now the Start constraint is on the far backside. The End constraint is on the front. So if you click on instead of Default, go to None, all of a sudden your preview should appear. Now you might notice though, because of that weight that's on here, we have a bow that's occurring underneath there. We might not want that. Maybe we don't want any weight on it. So instead of default, go to none and watch how it smooths out. Okay, hit the green check. Now we could go ahead and mirror this across. We want to mirror it across the side face. So go ahead and select that. Go to the mirror tool. And you want, it really doesn't matter, features or bodies mirror because there's only one feature. So you could get away with just feature. You could just click on this face here, hit the green check mark, and you have your bolt hull completed. Now I have a cigarette boat that you saw that I modeled up earlier, and I'd just like to show you and get you started on if you wanted to create that boat. Now, if you look at previous videos that I've made all sorts of different boats. So if you want ideas for like a sailboat, I show you a very primitive sailboat on, if you go back to, I believe, this exercise 8 on YouTube, type in E8 and like maybe 2018 or 2019 or even 2016. Depends on how far it goes back. Some years I skipped doing it. So like if you go to 2016, I believe you'll see a sailboat. And again, it's not a great sailboat, but it's just a very basic one. Shows you how to do it. This time around, I'm going to do a cigarette boat. Now with the cigarette boat, if we take a look at the planes and their offset, the offset is a bit different. It's 8 inches for the first one, 8, 8, and then 1. So it's just lengthened a little bit to give it more of that long, elongated feature. So let's go back here. To change that, since the planes are available, just double click on this plane 1. The dimension should appear right there, 6 inches. Double click, change it to 8, and hit this little rebuild button, and you could extend it. There we go. And I think that will work for us. That's what I used on the last one. Now select this face and start a sketch, and we're going to put a little raised surface for the top of the boat. Now you could go to offset entities because we'll want it inward, and like 0.1 works really well for just a light offset if that's what you'd like. And again, you have the freedom to do whatever you like in this one. I'm just showing you some different aspects. Hit the green check. I go to features and extrude this up just a little bit, like a 0.1. You can see it's raised, but let's put a little bit of a taper on it. So go to the taper, actually a lot of taper. And we could go ahead and put in like 25 degrees. Hit the green check. Now let's go ahead and select this face here. Start a sketch. We go to the top view orientation. Since it's symmetric, I would recommend drawing a center line right at the origin. And I'm going to go over here to the 3-point arc. And I want to make that cockpit dart out a little bit. So I'm just eyeballing it right back here. Let's see. It has a very long, elongated front. I'm going to drag this out and get that just a slight bow on it. Now I could control select this in the center line and make them coincident so that way it's centered. And then I could also hold control and select the center line and the two endpoints and make those two endpoints symmetric so they're equal on both sides. So if I move one side, the other side moves with it. You could put dimensions on this if you like. I'll just drop it in so you can see what I've got. I've got, we'll just make it 5 inches. And now we could go ahead and take our arc tool again. We're going to have it kind of slope in this way and a little bit of a bow like that. And let's mirror that across. So control, hit escape, control select that arc and then this line here and go to mirror entities. Now I could put a dimension on that too, and we'll just make that 9. And then finally, we'll put another 3-point arc from here to here, and just a subtle bow right there. Okay, now we're going to go to Features, Extrude Boss, and extrude this up, maybe 1.25, maybe even higher. Actually, maybe we'll go 1.5 inches. Oops. All right. And turn on draft. Oh, actually, before we turn on draft, let's cancel there and let's put in some sketch fillets. And I want to show you the effect that sketch fillets have versus putting a fillet after the fact, especially when draft is involved. So go to the sketch, go to fillet, and let's see what this looks like here. I'm going to increase that to 0.1. Let's see. Let's go with maybe, let's try 1 inch. It's a bit on the dramatic side. Maybe not so much. Let's go with 0.75. There we go. All right. Hit the green check. Now we could go ahead and go to Features. I'll hit the green check again. Extrude Boss, 1.5. And let's turn on draft. Now I have it at 25 degrees of draft. And you can see that the sketch fillet starts to converge. And that may be good, may not be good. Depends on what you're looking for out of the design. I think that's going to be okay for me. So I'm going to hit the green check because I'm going to chop part of that off. If we take a look at this boat, you can see it darts down and then back up again. So to do that, I'm going to go to the right plane and start a sketch, hit my space bar, and actually I'm just going to go to the right so it straightens out. And I could draw that in. Now I'm going to take the line tool and I'm sketching on the right plane. And I'm going to go down like this and then up again. Actually, I'm going to put more of a angle on that and then down again. Now you could have it just slice through this way. I actually kind of like to do something like this where I have a solid cut through. And then I could go to Features, Extrude Cut, and Mid-Plane, and just drag it out. Or actually, I'm sorry, through all both. Go through all both, that's just easier. Hit the green check. And now we are starting to get our cockpit looking pretty good there. Okay, another feature I had on there, and by the way, the cockpit's going to be an offset of this cut, but before I put that in there, I want to get some of these other features placed. So I'm going to select this face and start a sketch. Now what I'm looking to do is, you can see this curve design I have here as well as there. They're both done separately because they're on different surfaces. But to show you how that's done, I select that face and I've started a sketch. And I'm going to go to the top view. Oops. And make sure you're in the sketch tool here. I'm going to draw in a center line. And I'm going to proceed. I'm going to take the spline tool. And I'm going to come off like that corner. Now, the more points you put in, the more control you're going to get. And if you're snapping to things, note that the control key will override the snap if you hold the snap. So you're not snapping to geometry so often. Notice control key deactivates the auto snap. Or it's actually auto relation. It's not really snap, but it looks like it's snapping. Okay, and I'm going to adjust these curves to make it look a little bit more subtle. And I can mirror that across. So I'm going to select it, hold control, select the center line, mirror entities. And then you could control select these edges. And this is where we get to use convert entities. Convert entities projects those edges and should seal that up. And then over here, we want to go ahead and control select these two edges. Now be careful, there's draft on there. You want the ones that are touching, and hit convert entities again. And then go to trim entities and use your trim to closest and trim off this segment here and this segment here. And it should highlight that like that. Okay, now I could go to features and I can extrude that. I'm just going to extrude it very shallow, like 0.01 maybe. Maybe a little bit higher, 0.03. All right, so now we're going to make the cockpit segment. So I'm going to select this face, start a sketch, and we could actually do an offset entities for this. Just go to offset entities, and whatever thickness you would like, just hit the reverse, and hit the green check, features, extrude cut, and bring that down. Just make sure it doesn't go too low and through the boat. You can preview it by just kind of rotating around like so. Now, if you wanted to go straight down and flat, you could do that as well. You could actually go up to a plane. So instead of blind, you could say up to surface. And I think we don't have any surface there. But if you wanted to, you could offset a plane. Okay. And now we saw what happened here with that fillet and how it gets smaller. It tapers with the draft. Watch what happens when I put a fillet around here later on. When you add a fillet after the fact, it comes out very different. It's constant. And in this case, it blew it out, the preview. So I can only go with about 0.4 on this edge. But now look at that. It's just straight. There's no taper. I mean, there's draft on it, but it's consistent versus this one is actually getting smaller as it goes higher. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and add some additional features on here. It's a little bit big. Maybe around this edge here. Get some fillets in on here. And maybe on that too. Okay. Now, if some of you are wondering how to get a steering wheel. The steering wheel, say we want to offset it, we don't want it in the center, you would select, and I'll show your right plane. There's my right plane. And I'm going to hold control and drag off a copy just like we did before. And I'm just eyeballing, in this case, maybe about an inch. Yeah, we'll just make it an inch even. See it's offset there. Hit the green check. And now we can click on that new plane and start a sketch. I'm going to go to the normal 2 button. And then I'm going to go ahead and so I can see into the cockpit, I'm going to go to Hidden Lines Visible up here. And from here, I could draw in with the sketch tool where I want my steering wheel. And I'm going to have it intersect a little bit. It's going to come up here. I could go perpendicular. Depends how big you want your steering wheel. And then I want a little radius on it, so I'm going to use our trick for a tangent arc. Drag that down. And then get this connected. And just make sure that these two are parallel. And I could select this edge and go to Features, Revolve Boss Base, hit the green check. And when you look in there, you should have a steering wheel. Now, if you want to put additional details, you can. You can make an assembly. You could take the hand wheel, scale it down. You can do a lot of different things. Just showing you some techniques there. Let's go back to shade it with edges. Now, to make the chair, you could select the floor, start a sketch. I'm going to make a little post, and let's see. Let's get it aligned right about there. Here. And notice I'm not using dimensions. I'm just having a little bit of fun here. So 0.1 for the height. And then you could build on that. You could start a sketch. Oh, I went to edit sketch. Let me click on that, start a sketch. And you could take your center rectangle. If you want, you could center it. Extrude boss to make the seat. And if you want, you could actually select this face and start a sketch and draw in if you wanted to use the parallelogram. Click here, here. Draw in a parallelogram, features, extrude boss base. I made mine a little bit different. It's just all different modeling techniques. I could select this edge to have it stop. And so we got our chair. And then you can put fillets on it and dress it up a bit. And then the photorealistic rendering and such, like this was the exhaust. I just drew the exhaust ports and extruded them out. There's a lot of little tricks, but basically that kind of gets you pretty close to making the rest of the boat. It does take time. Depends on how much time you spend on it. But you can have a lot of fun with it with a lot of the different things we've learned. You can see there, I've actually made a little control panel and just extruded some features and such inside there. And then add your colors, and you're in good shape. Okay, let's take a look at the lab that's in here. Okay, and for this one, we're just going to make the extrusion. There is a dimension missing, and it's right here, and I believe it's only 60 thousandths deep, so 0.06 for the height of that little lip that goes on there. But we can see this is the other half of the smoke detector that we made last week. It's a 2.5-inch diameter. It's not shelled. That's the thing. It is hollowed out, but you're going to have to do extrusions to cut to shell. And here you can see section view showing there's a rib feature that's patterned around. And then this little feature for the nail holes or these screw holes for it to lock in. So let's begin. Go to New, Part, and hit OK. Select the top plane, start a sketch, draw your circle out, and dimension it at 2.5. Go to Features, Extrude Boss, and as we look at the drawing here, the overall thickness is 0.31. Okay, the very first thing we should put on probably is the fillet at the bottom, and the fillet is 0.06. And now we could do the cutouts in here. So select this face, start a sketch. And the ID is 2.4. So we could just draw that in the center. And then ID stands for internal diameter, by the way. Extruded cut. And let's see here. So we have 310 minus 60 thousandths. So if you can't do the math in your head, you could type in here 310 minus 0.06. And it's 0.25. So just remember, you could always put in equations in there. All right, now let's go ahead and select this face, start a sketch, and the next diameter calls out is going to be 2.45. And what we're going to do is we'll draw a second circle, or we could actually use our little trick of convert entities. Like, so you can select this edge and hit convert entities, and it steals the edge and uses it. Now we go to features and extruded cut. And this is the dimension I'm missing on the print. And it's 0.06 if I'm correct. All right, now we're going to go ahead and put in one of those features. So I'm going to select the surface here, start a sketch. Oh, I hit edit sketch, sorry. Hit my space bar, go to the top. And what we're looking to do here is make this interesting feature. So with that, let's see here, do I have a... I'm going to go ahead and download this. We'll just open it up, and then that should give us the rotate. Okay, so what we're looking at here, we have a detail of a radius of 0.1 and then radius of 0.05, and it goes down here 20,000 steep. And look at that, so 0.1, 0.1. So let's actually go with the straight slot. Infer to the origin, click and drag this up, and there we go. And so we're looking at 0.1, and then 0.18 between centers. So actually we could just dimension this. Now to locate that, this is located, let's see here, 0.82 from center, and that's the top. So from here to here, 0.82, and now it's located. Let's go to features, extrude cut, and that first depth is only 0.02. And now we could select that. If you're seeing that, that's just the floor now. Start a sketch on that surface. And let's go to the circle here and infer. And this is going to be snapping to that size there. And then over here, we have a smaller circle. Or better yet, rather than a circle, just we'll use that tool again, the straight slot. And infer. It's going to be a little bit smaller, 0.05. And we could trim this out, or we could leave it as is. And let me just make sure I don't have this upside down. Okay, looks good. And that just goes cut, it gets cut through. So features, extrude cut. And remember, it goes to selected contour because we didn't trim it. So we just have to select everything we want to cut through. Oops. Let me edit that. Forgot to select through all. All right, so there we have our little feature. Now we need to pattern that or get that over to the other side. So I'm going to select those two features. Let me go to linear pattern. We could select this edge for our vector, put in only 2 instances, and then the dimension is given on that sheet of 1.5. Okay, hit the green check. So we have our little tabs so we can mount. Now we're going to go ahead and put in those ribs. Now we're not going to use the rib feature because it doesn't go straight across. But I'm going to select, let's see, take a closer look at how those ribs are developed. Okay, so they're 210 off of the bottom base. So they're 100 thousandths off the top. So if we were to bring them off the bottom, if we wanted to use the actual dimensions that are given here, we could just select the bottom surface of the model, start a sketch, and then go to the top and draw one of those in. I'm going to go ahead and draw a center line straight across, and then I'm going to use the center rectangle and draw in a little rectangle here and snap it to this edge, or actually maybe intersect it a little bit just so it's actually contacting. I guess we could go with tangent even, but that's all right. Let's take a look at what the next dimension is. And it's centered. The thickness is going to be 40 thousandths. And then the offset, it goes 1/4 inch from the outer edge. So we could click on that point to here. It's 0.25. And then let's actually, we can make this tangent to this edge. So that way it just fills in. And then this will be 40, 0.04. Now we can go to features, extrude boss base. We'll have it extrude up. And it was 0.25, I believe. Yep. Hit the green. Actually, let's stop. Actually, I think it's 0.21. There we go. Hit the green check. And now we could pattern that. So we could go to circular pattern. It's already selected. Select the outer face. It's set to 300 equal spacing, 368 instances. Hit the green check. And I do believe there might be another. Let's take a look. I think I might have messed that up a little bit. Oh, I did actually. There is a little tab that goes up the very top. So for that, we could extend this to the top and then make a cutout. That would probably be a good way, or we could just have this come out 0.15. All right, let's select the side face, start a sketch, and we're going to go normal 2, and then go to hidden lines, and we'll just draw that in. Use the corner rectangle tool, get it down to this corner here, and I believe if we go, we don't want to get it on the edge because then it will extend outward. I think. So let's have it offset a little bit there. And then from here, let's see, where does that end up? To the outside. Oh, 0.15. Okay, and we might want to put a little dimension in here just to make sure it never pokes out. We'll just make it 0.1. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 0.01. Okay, and let's go to Features, Extrude Boss, and shade this so you can see it. We want it to go up to this edge and follow that edge. Hit the green check. And if I had put it on the original one that I extruded, let's see. Yep. Technically, I could drag the circular pattern underneath it and now edit the circular pattern because I just reordered it because of the timeline, and make sure I select that little face right there for that additional feature, that Boss Extrude 3, or I could have selected it right here. And there it is. And again, there's several ways. If you watch my earlier videos, I probably did it completely different. But that pretty much completes this lab 7. I'm sorry, lab 8, and as well as exercise 8.